Well, hello and good morning, YouTube. I'm here for another one of my shitty little videos about whateverness and stuff. I was driving to work today and drove past the Starbucks, and I was thinking to myself about the supposed controversy. It's not a controversy, but they're making a controversy of it. But their employees whining and crying and pissing and moaning about their new uniform guidelines at their job. They can't just wear whatever the heck they want. They gotta have, specifically black or dark gray shirts, so that, according to the corporate, it kind of helps the apron to pop more, shows more, etc., whatever. And really, it's one of those deals where, it's probably one of the most minimal uniform requirements I think I'd ever seen. Black or gray shirt, t-shirt, or polo. Like, it doesn't even have to be a company shirt. But these employees are screaming and crying and whining and mewing and carrying on. I mean, they're going on strike over fucking having to, wear a fucking uniform. And it just blows my mind that, like, why is Starbucks for even 2 seconds tolerating this? Like, just fire every one of them, bring in some scabs. Fuck it. Because, and the worst of it is, a lot of it comes down to, Starbucks is one of the last companies that still hasn't figured out the concept of get woke, go broke. They're publicly flaunting how they're allies and tolerant to the left, and they're all into this DEI and, critical race theory, all this, they're basically a leftist corporate, which, why in the world would a corporation who exists for the purpose of profit and money want to align itself with socialists and communists? I don't know. I don't think Starbucks is going to be around for a whole lot longer if they keep doing the things they're doing. But these fucking idiots that work there that are crying about these shirts and shit, clearly you could tell, like, the joke of how, most of these have never had a real job really shows. It's kind of become an online joke or stigma, stereotype. You get all these Gen X, woke liberals went and got their critical race theory degree and got their masters in, trans rights, whatever shit. And now they can't find a real fucking job because, gee, what do you know? None of that shit is in any way practical, useful, or, in the real world. What do they always say? What can you do with these fucking critical race theory and all this other social justice shit except fucking teach it to other people? It's fucking Pond scheme. Salty Cracker fucking has done a pretty good job of breaking that shit down. So has Nuxnor. But I'm thinking about, like, right now I work at one fast food restaurant that has a very similar dress code. Black shirt, dark gray shirt. They have company shirts too you can purchase, or you have the option of just black, So I found these at a thrift store. Somebody, there was like, I bought like 4 or 5 pairs. They're George brand, right? Good quality shirt, right? I bought 4 of them for $20. So, like, literally, as, if I was working at Starbucks, you could have done the same thing. Go to a thrift store and just look for black polo shirts or whatever shirts that fit for just a few bucks. No one's telling you have to go to the fucking Old Navy and spend $60 on a shirt. Like, that's what they're complaining about. They're literally on their Instagram and Twitch. Oh, I can't afford to spend $20, $30 on a shirt. Then don't. Go to a fucking thrift store, you dumb fuck. God damn. Anyways, and you compare that to another job that I just recently left. And there you had to have the work shirt. You had to have their uniform. It had to have the company logo and all that shit. And they were charging $30-some per shirt. Okay, they were not cheap shirts. And at the time when I first started working at that job, I was homeless. Since then, my situation has greatly improved. Thank you very much for your concern. But I was homeless. And so I had to do my laundry, at the laundromat. And I didn't always have the most opportunities to do. So I wound up having to buy a lot of shirts because of that. Like, almost every other week, I'm having to buy another shirt because, crap, I didn't get a chance to go to the laundromat, And, at $35 a pop, I probably got about 7 or 8 of those shirts. Now, that's expensive. That's expensive. All right? Well, you know what that's called? It's called an investment. You got to spend money, make money. I mean, if you're crying about having to spend a little bit of money on a shirt, don't ever try to get a fucking job as a mechanic where you got to supply your own tools, or a construction worker where, again, you got to have your own damn tools. I mean, and that's that, it all comes down to that entitlement. It all comes down to a complete, total sense of utter entitlement. I used to ask people back in the day, I'd say, what do you think are the 2 biggest issues in this country? Or which do you think of these 2 issues is the biggest problem in this country? Ignorance or apathy? Which is worse, ignorance or apathy? Which one do you think is the most prominent within people? And the answer I would get the most often, I don't know, and I don't care. Okay. Thank you for exemplifying my point. But nowadays, especially with, this younger generation, these people in their 20s and 30s, the generation that I'm too close to for comfort. I consider myself to be more Gen X than millennial. People say that I was born at the time wrong to be. No, I was born in 86. My formative childhood years were in the 90s. My siblings were all older than me. I grew up watching the shit that they fucking were into. I'm Gen X. And I also lost my train of thought. Oh, yeah. Complaining about liberals. So now the biggest issues are not so much ignorance or apathy. I mean, there's still plenty of ignorance going around. These guys are dumb as fuck. The apathy, I almost wish there was a degree of apathy to them, because holy fuck, they're loud, they're obnoxious, they're in everyone's business. Nowadays, when you see your, typical, leftist, the loony ones, like, I'm not talking about the slightly left-leaning, like, I could probably say I'm slightly left-leaning in a few areas. Like I said, I'm totally for the legalization of marijuana. But then again, I counter that because I don't believe in federal, prohibition against marijuana, but I support mandatory minimum sentences for possession of harder drugs, fentanyl, meth, stuff like that. So, yeah, it's different. But the big thing with these guys I'm noticing is it reminds me of the movie As Good as It Gets. When he's at his therapist's office and the receptionist comes running up to him, how do you rate women so well? I think of a man, and I take away reason and accountability. Well, that's there you go. That's your leftist party. That's the Democratic Party. Zero accountability and zero reason. They're utterly unreasonable, and they're completely convinced that nothing that they do is ever their fault. They always got to have a scapegoat. They always got to blame somebody else. And it's like, these people have no future, honestly. I mean, they can't even handle working at a Starbucks, for crying out loud. Crying about having to spend a few extra dollars for a t-shirt. Meanwhile, I'm, going to a thrift store and it's like, holy shit, score, $20, I got shirts, Anyways, my shift's gonna start here fairly soon, so I guess that's kind of it for today. If you have a job and you gotta buy a shirt for that job, buy the fucking shirt, or just quit your fucking job. I mean, there's plenty of other people out there that are willing to work, that are wanting to work, that'll happily take you guys' jobs while you're out there picketing and complaining and crying about one of the most standard fucking things a person could encounter in a workplace. Grow the fuck up. And you guys think you're miserable now. Wait until, if you ever actually, thankfully I can say now it's looking like it's never going to happen. But, a part of me almost wishes you guys could get a little snippet of the so-called fantasy world utopia that you claim you're. Head on over to China and spend a week working at a shoe factory. You'll be happy to buy that shirt and work at Starbucks. Anyways, I think I've rambled enough, so bye.